Hi, my name's Alicia. How old do you think I am? 40? 50? Maybe more? Well, you guessed wrong. I'm only 17. How's this possible, you might ask? Why does this girl look like an old lady? The thing is, I have a rare disease called progeria. It's a disorder that causes the body to age too quickly. However, this didn't stop me from becoming a real superhero known all over the world. Do you want to know how I did it? Then listen to my story. Trust me, every word of it is true. It all began when I was a child. It was hard for me to be like everyone else because of my illness. I couldn't play with other children or do any sports because it was hard for me to move. Most of the time, I stayed at home and drew. That was my hobby. Over time, I even became quite good at it. I began to come up with entire plots and draw stories. Despite that, I still felt a little sad that I couldn't be like all the healthy children. I thought a lot about how hard it was for people with health problems and unusual looks. That's how I spent day after day until something weird happened. One day, I was sitting in my room and drawing another story, when I suddenly had a craving for ice cream. It was a long way to the store, and my mother was not at home. I realized that I would get to eat no sweets that day, but I wanted some ice cream with maple syrup so bad that I even drew it. Suddenly, there was a pop. My drawing came to life and turned into real ice cream. I couldn't believe my eyes. I picked it up carefully and tasted it. It was real ice cream, just like I wished. I decided to experiment a bit and drew a large glass of Coke. I really wanted it to become real. There was another pop, and a glass of Coke appeared on the table in front of me. Amazing! I spent a whole week experimenting. I drew different objects, and I wished for them to turn real. And they immediately appeared in front of me. I realized that I got a real superpower somehow. I was different from other people. I wanted to use my superpowers for good, but I didn't know how yet. One day, while I was practicing my new ability, our doorbell rang. People in black suits were standing in the doorway. Those were special agents from a secret organization. They said they knew about my superpowers and offered me to join their organization. I was so surprised I couldn't even utter a word. That's how much I wanted to do it. Of course, I agreed. Only later, I learned that the secret organization was called the Invisible Shield, and that it was dealing with supervillains too dangerous for the ordinary military to handle. They had all kinds of cutting-edge technology with the coolest agents! Of course, with supernatural abilities. I met my team. Its members were guys with health issues and unusual looks. For example, Josh had Marfan syndrome. He was skinny and tall and could stretch his body any way he liked. Then there was Kate. We called her Mermaid Girl. She had Siren Amelia, a deformity in which a person is born with fused legs. Kate couldn't walk, but she could swim like a fish and stay underwater for a long time. Miles was the fourth member of our team. His whole body was covered in moles. He looked like a leopard or a Dalmatian. He had a superpower. He could blend into any background. This earned him the nickname Chameleon. The four of us began to hone our abilities on a secret base. Our parents thought we were at a summer camp for children with disabilities. We needed the cover story because we were real superheroes. And then, one day, we got our first real mission. A villain was spotted on a small island in the Pacific Ocean. He was getting an army of robots ready to take over the world. He called himself Dr. It. He was a bad guy that needed to be stopped. Only we could do it. So we immediately set off. We were flying our top secret plane to the island where Dr. It was hiding, when suddenly the robots from the island opened fire. The villain had found out that we wanted to mess with his plans. One of the shells hit the plane and we fell into the water. The plane began to sink rapidly. More and more water was flowing inside. We could have drowned, but Kate, the mermaid girl, grabbed us and pulled us to shore. We were on the villain's island. We continued on foot. We were making our way through the jungle to Dr. It's castle when we were attacked by the robo-guards sent to stop us. We began to fight them using our superpowers, but they just kept multiplying. Then Josh yelled, "Run! I'll stop them!" He alone stayed to fight the robots, and Miles and I ran on. At last, we reached Dr. It's castle. Oh no! It was so heavily guarded by the robots that it was impossible to get inside. Then, Miles said he would sneak in and send a rope down. He blended into the wall and became invisible. He was walking right in front of the robots, but they remained completely oblivious to him. He slipped inside the castle and threw the rope over the wall for me. That's how I ended up inside the castle. We went on through the gloomy halls of the castle in search of Dr. It. We were getting so close. Suddenly, in one of the hallways, a grating hand came down from above and separated Miles from me. I was left alone. Miles told me, "You need to keep moving. You have to stop the villain." So I went looking for Dr. It. I climbed to the top floor of the castle and came face to face with the most fearsome robo-guards. Those were Dr. It's personal guards. They laughed when they saw a little girl in front of them, but they didn't know about my superpower. Using just a marker, I drew everything that could help me defeat the robots. Oh yes, they hadn't expected that. When all the robots were down, I stepped over their smoking remains and walked into the main lab. There he was, right in front of me, Dr. It. He smiled and said, "You are a very brave girl. I need people like you. Don't you want to join my forces? I will make you the general of the army. Together, we will conquer the whole world." I replied that I would never side with evil, but would always fight for good and justice. Dr. It laughed maliciously and replied, "You will perish then." All of Dr. It's robots rushed at me. I barely had time to draw and animate the objects to fight them off, but there were too many robots, and I had to retreat. Could the villain win? Then I saw Kate, Miles, and Josh next to me. My friends came to the rescue. Together, we started to win against the robots. I saw Dr. It stop smiling when he realized that he was losing. The villain pressed some button which opened a secret door and disappeared behind it. I realized that Dr. It was trying to escape. We couldn't let this happen. We finally beat the robots and gave chase. Dr. It kept hiding from us all over the castle, but we found him each time. Finally, we had him at a dead end. There was nowhere else to run. Dr. It sat down in a corner and started crying. We looked at each other in surprise. The mask behind which he'd been hiding his real face fell to the floor. Dr. It looked at us. We saw a tearful old man. That's what he was like. Dr. It said his name was Martin, and that he was 19 years old. He had the same disease as me, progeria. He was aging very quickly. Martin told us his story. When he was a child, everyone ridiculed him. Nobody wanted to be friends with the little old man. He was always alone. Robotics was his only passion. Martin liked to create different robots and play with them. One day, when he was bullied particularly badly at school, he got angry and decided he would take revenge on his abusers one day. He worked day and night and built an army of evil robots to take over the world. Martin wanted to destroy everyone who was different from him. He became Dr. It and settled on the island. We realized that Martin was just an unhappy person with a grudge against the world. He was like us, but unlike him, we didn't feel like outcasts. We decided to help Martin. After all, deep inside, he was vulnerable and kind. We took him with us and brought him to a secret organization. There, he learned that he was special. He had a superpower, his technical genius, and he could use it for good. Martin realized that he was wrong, and we became friends. A fifth hero appeared on our team. And that's the whole story. You might say that it's an impossible fantasy, but I'm telling you it really happened. Not in real life, but on the pages of my comic book. Yes, this is a real story that I drew, and this is my superpower. I can never be like everyone else, but I can imagine a whole world where I can be whoever I want and do whatever I want. This comic, called Alicia vs. Dr. It, turned out so good that a major publisher offered me to release a whole series of comics about Alicia and her super team. I agreed, of course. These comics have been translated into many languages. Brave Alicia got a lot of fans. That's how I became famous all over the world. Remember, if you aren't strong enough to become a superhero, you can always find another way to achieve your dream.